Welcome to our event, Falling in Love with Jira. Again, we are co hosting with the Chicago chapter with Kayla and myself. And what we have today for you guys is Russ from Herzum. So I'd like to give a big thank you to them for helping sponsor the event and keep both of our communities alive and well and speaking to us today. So I will go ahead and hand it over to you, Russ.
Where we come from, people complain when there's PowerPoint involved. One of the things that people complain is how Jira is clunky, big. You need to know exactly the things that you need to know to operate within Jira. You need to know where to look for stuff. I feel that over the years, Atlassian had made a lot of progress to make Jira a lot easier to work with. And hopefully some things that I'm going to show you are going to be new. Maybe some of it is going to be a reaffirmation of that Jira is just easier to use overall. And the last thing that I'm going to show you today, I want you to look for this. It's like an Easter egg throughout the presentation. And I want to see if anybody catches it. If you see it during the presentation, it's very subtle. Definitely, I'll ask for it before I mention it. I want to see if you guys can spot it. Let's get started. One of the hottest topics, and then I think this functionality that makes issues go away in terms of how much time you spend in Jira, it is all around AI. And so there's two things that we're going to talk about. One is the built-in AI within Jira, but then also Rovo, that next evolution of the Atlassian intelligence. What's the most common way of people talking to Jira or interact with Jira is usually the issue navigator. And so I think the fact that Atlassian kind of built in that natural language search within the navigator is pretty awesome. Using the English language to search for issues, you don't need to know the JQL before. I can say, show me stories, a mobile dev project. Enter, it'll go do thing in the background, it'll populate the search result. The very cool thing is at the bottom here, it shows you what the actual JQL looks like. So in case you don't know, then you can start learning. And so I'm asking to show me stories that are in mobile development project. And then on top of that, I'm going to say, and the ones that are assigned to Mitch, that made the list even smaller. So let me do a list view. It's a little bit better experience. There you go. You can keep building on top of that. What I'm getting to is you've got this request where you have, show me everything that belongs to this one person, particular priority, anything that's assigned to them. And then you can manipulate different types of information. You can say, hey, anything that was created in the last 10 days, and we should condense down to nothing. It's because Mitch is very lazy, doesn't do anything last 10 days. And so you don't need to isolate what you're looking for. You can be a little bit more broad. And so you can say stuff like, show me all stories in Jira. And then on top of that, you can add something that are created by FieldBot. Now, check out. So I'm asking for a FieldBot, right? So it's a username, but I'm not spelling it out exactly the way that it is spelled out in Jira. So if I do use that in Atlassian Intelligence, it will actually reduce the list by exactly not that. So I'm saying that everything that's not created by that field bot, that shrinks the list exactly by that. So even though I don't spell it out, Jira still understands, or through Atlassian Intelligence, that I'm talking about a field demo bot. And then I can take it slightly further and do something like unassigned, critical, and from 2025. So I don't need to necessarily spell out exactly which fields I want to search on, and still the Atlassian Intelligence will be able to figure out that. So it's misbehaving slightly, but essentially you don't need to spell out exactly the things that you're looking for. It'll figure out and build a query for you and search for the issues for you. Let's go to our next use case, and I'm going to bring up a particular issue. One very cool thing is you've got an ability to be able to understand what the issue is about without spending time looking at it. And having that ability to do summary is pretty neat. I can say, hey, summarize what you got for me. Very useful when you come into a contact with an issue that has 30 different replies going back and forth between the customer and the agent. And then for you to walk in and be productive the moment you start looking at the issue, I think that gives you that little bit a leg up when you work with these requests. And that's kind of what that looks like for service desk. There are other pieces to it, right? If you want, when you're doing a reply to a customer, you can actually ask the Atlassian Intelligence to write something for you. Say, write a response to a customer that we will not approve this request. And so instead of me trying to sit there and do it, it'll do it for you. Right. So then you can just say, hey, insert and then save to the reply. And so it'll show up on the portal. I went a little bit further and I said, denied because you don't have enough information and we don't approve requests on Valentine's Day. And so Atlassian Intelligence went in and did that for me. Let's quickly jump over to a development project. Atlassian Intelligence makes working in the software project a lot easier. And so I go in here. One thing that you can do is say improve issue. So you can improve the issue description. So you're asking that to analyze what you got in there and rewrite it for you. And so I had bullet points. And then all of a sudden, I've got a user story concept, acceptance criteria, and other information. And so it's got enough understanding of the subject based on the summary and the description that's already there to make it a little bit more rounded and a little bit more easy to utilize. You can do other things. You can summarize comments. So if there's any comments that are there, you can do the same thing. This is the piece that will help you speed up and improve things, is suggest child issues. And so it'll go and say, hey, here's a list of child issues that I think would fulfill the request if you implement them. So we started out with the issue that's mobile user registration. And so we've got a suggestion is user registration UI, email verification system, password reset, capture, so on and so forth. You can accept them all. Or you can say, I like this one. I like the capture one. Information update. I like that. And as you click it, it'll go and start creating these subtasks and immediately it's there available. And because the way that our project is set up, we have that assigned to Mitch. And then we can discard the rest of it. Another cool thing that I like with the new WYSIWYG editor is you have the writing assistant. And so you can say, hey, improve the description, improve writing, whatever you want. You can ask it, say, write based description. And so it'll go and it'll suggest some of the subtests that you can add and you can insert that in. A really cool thing is if you notice the subtest that it suggests here is slightly different than what the improved issue functionality was. As expected, that every time you have a interaction with the AI, it will give you a slightly different result, which is expected.
The improve issue button, do we have to enable that or is everyone able to see that?
If you got Atlassian Intelligence enabled in your instance, it should just show up, given that you have the premium subscription. I don't think you have the AI enabled.
That would be something that your organization would have to have the Atlassian Intelligence feature enabled.
Correct.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. And so you've got this refine button, summarize writing boring, make it shorter, sure, change tone to, all right, professional, empathetic. We've seen that. Translate. This is awesome. And when I was looking this up, I'm like, you know what? This is great, but let's have it in Japanese. I'm assuming it's the same thing. And so it'll go through and it'll translate it for you. There's these little niceties that Atlassian is adding to make this a very enjoyable tool to work with. Feel free to disagree, but this is my opinion. And so let's talk about Rovo a little bit. Having Atlassian Intelligence sprinkled within the tool is great. What if you want to have a meaningful conversation without context, without being in the particular issue in a particular project? They introduced Rovo. With Rovo, it kind of gives you the feeling of having a teammate, an assistant, and there's different things you can do with it. So you can say, hey, what are my open issues? I don't have to go looking for stuff. You can ask Rovo and it'll say, okay, I know I have some assigned. Let's hope that it sees. And it does. And so it goes and sees that, hey, I've got these issues that you can work on. All right, so it'll give you a list and it'll give you a link to a query that you can go and execute and see in the issue navigator. But I can say, hey, list all my critical tickets. The AI knows that critical kind of pertains to the priority. And so it'll go and find those tickets, hopefully, that are high priority or critical priority. So I'm going to give you a little clue as to that little Easter egg that I was referring to. It has nothing to do with AI, and it has to do more with the Jira UI itself. It lists all the critical tickets that are assigned to me. And so right there. And then you can ask, hey, are there any blockers for the tickets that I have? And so it'll go and look for them. And so it says, hey, these are the issues that are blocking progress of the ticket, critical tasks. If we go ahead and start looking at each one of them, you'll see that they're linked together and are blocking the issue that are supposed to be working on. But that's kind of like a general Rovo. There's Rovo agents, which are pretty cool. A couple that I want to highlight. One is the Jira theme analyzer. It'll analyze information within the project and give you an idea how to group stuff. And so I have show me themes in a PLAT project. So I'm directing it to a particular project within the instance. It went in and found issues. And so now it actually builds out a table for you that says, hey, all these issues focus on certain things, and these include this. And so it breaks it down by theme and a percentage of issues that belong to that theme. And so I can take it and have a little bit more fun with this. It's got a nice long list, and we have quite a few issues within the instance. I can ask it to write it in bullet points. So if I don't want to see all the links and all that stuff, I can see the themes as bullet points and then issues that are referred to it. Right. So it doesn't have to be a table. Just goes through and rehashes that information. And then following the same pattern here, I can ask it which themes are the highest priority. And so it'll give it like, hey, there's a lot more themes that we have. It'll go and show you the ones. And so it shows all the issues that have the highest priority in those themes. Another one that I wanted to highlight is the issue organizer. Can you find stories without epics in the PLAB project? And so while it's looking for, so the agents, if you have read information about AI, it has an ability to go and understand the information you're inputting, and then goes and searches all the data that it's been trained on to go and find the information. But it takes a lot of time, or it can take a lot of time, a lot of processing power to go and find all those links to bring back the information that you're asking it. Think of it as like a focused AI. An issue organizer will work on a limited set of data it was trained on to be able to produce the information that it's looking for. And so that's why Atlassian has multiple ones so that you can search and make the experience more enjoyable and faster. And so it found some issues that are without the epics, right? Can you show me the epics that are in that project? And so just having an ability to go and ask questions, right? So I don't have to go look for stuff. This usually, if I go start looking for things and I'm not finding them, my first goal is going to be my PM or people that I think are going to be working on, and they're going to have to go and time. So it just involves a lot of movement, a lot of wasted time. But here I can go and don't need to rely on anybody and can just ask for things, and it's like my trusty assistant will bring that information back for me. So far, any questions on AI stuff? There's a few other things that I wanted to show you guys that hopefully will improve your experience in Jira.
Yeah, we did have one quick question, Russ. It was regarding when you were using Atlassian Intelligence to suggest the child issues and such. Where is that information pulling from? Are they able to think up in Excel to pull the requirements, or is it just coming from Confluence?
We're looking at the mobile 40, right? So it's a mobile illustration story. And so suggest child issues. It looks at everything that's already in the issue. So it looks at the summary, it looks at the description, and then the AI suggests what stories it thinks you should add or tasks you should add to the story. It's not going out there and pulling from some spreadsheet that you may have. It's literally brainstorming for you and creates suggestions as to here are the subtasks you can create for your team to work on. So instead of me figuring out what do I need to do for mobile user registration, I can just ask it. And so if you actually remember at the beginning of the demo where we're doing this, there were stories around capture and so on and so forth. And so here we got that capture task already there, so it doesn't create one here. And literally AI does the brainstorming and creates the suggestions for you.
Just to add on to the question then, so if we were to attach an Excel file to the ticket, it would not look at that Excel file? Or would we have, even if we attach a Google Sheet as a URL and have the embed on there for the card option, would it look into that, or would it have to be the data in a table format right in the description of the ticket?
I don't want to misspeak, so I am not 100% sure if it looks at the Excel document. I would like to say I would like it to look, right? So hopefully that it does. I know that Rovo, when you enable it, it gives you an option of what information you want it to look at. Obviously, the Atlassian tools is the first thing that is going to look at. When you enable it, you give it a site, but you could also connect other tools like Google Drive, Figma. There's a whole host of different ones, Slack, all that. And they'll go look in those tools as well. So it'll pull that information. But I want to make sure that we're clear because it's suggesting these subtasks, it does not come from here. This is not, it's looking at some of this, but it's not necessarily suggesting based on it. So we can pick another issue and run through the same thing. I want to make sure that we're talking about a one-click logs. Yeah, sure. Let's see what this one does. All right, it's also story, and I can ask it to improve. So a limited description, and it's to suggest child issues. And so it'll go based on what it sees in the description. So it's not necessarily everything that's in the description, but I'm sure it's so the previous one did have captions. So it looked at it and said, okay, that's acceptance criteria. Maybe I can translate it into subtask. But this is a completely without a suggestion from a description, just based on what it sees. So no more questions, AI related?
No,
Good.
not at this point.
All right.
Thanks, Russ.
All right. So I'd like to think that there are some folks that are on the call that are developers. And so one thing, maybe my background back in the day, when I was young and beautiful, I was a developer. And one thing that I hated was using the project management tools. You get a ticket assigned, you got to work it, and so on and so forth. I just want to make sure that this is one of the things that's overlooked, but there are folks that don't use it, don't know that it's there. Being able to not be in Jira and still manipulate Jira. Let's do this together. So I'm going to create an issue. And I'm going to go ahead and create a branch. This is integration with Bitbucket. It goes out to the source code management tool, creates a branch in there for me to work on. So I'm going to hit create, and that's it. So this is me from the Jira issue that was assigned to me, not Mitch Davis. And so I'm a developer working on that. Let me refresh this real quick, make sure that okay. So now it knows that it's one branch. I can go and start my work. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to look at Jira anymore. None of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and obviously, let's find this one. This is the branch that I created. I'm not going to bore you with going into a command line and try to tweak the code there. I'm just going to do it here. So we've got a README file. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to tweak it here. I'm going to be very predictable and just copy paste some of the stuff that's already there. We're going to do a commit, and I'm going to mention the issue that I'm working on, and that's it. And so far, I created a branch. I go and do my work. I create the code, whatever. I'm going to go and create a pull request, right? Pull request is essentially a developer asking to take the changes that they made and pull them into the main branch of the project that they're working on, adding your changes to everybody else's changes. So I'm going to go create a pull request. It's coming from a source branch, the one that we created. The destination branch is the one that was there before, and all that default. I haven't touched Jira at all. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a pull request. So pull request is getting created. I switched over to back to Jira, and so we'll give it a second. While it's working in the background, hopefully. I am developer. I'm on to do whatever else I need to be doing. There's integration between the tools that works together. I want to refresh this. And so without me actually transitioning issue, the issue now is the architectural review. I'm going to switch back over to Bitbucket. So issue transition to architectural review all on its own. I'm going to go back to Bitbucket. I'm going to hit merge. Somebody looked at the pull request. I said, okay, good to go. Let's combine the code. I'm going to say merge. And so the merge is in progress. It's doing what it's doing. And I've got another bit working in the background that monitors Bitbucket and says, okay, based on that, we're going to change the status of the issue as well. And so we'll give it a second for that to happen. I have no patience for this. I'm going to refresh. And so it's in testing. So if we look at history, you'll see that it changed. I did not change it. It did it all on its own. The way that this is enabled, there is actually a trigger functionality that lives within the workflow. And then there's a particular actions that are available that will allow this. I'm going to briefly show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go to a workflow and I'm going to edit it For the architecture, you got trigger, and that trigger is pull request created. The pull request created will be transitions the issue when a related pull request is created in a connected repository. There's a request merged, reopened, commit created, review abandoned. This is specific to Bitbucket, can be applied to GitHub. You can use all of this to manipulate Jira without actually going back to Jira. Keeping the developers out of Jira, if that's the goal, it can be done. And so this is how that functionality is enabled. Couple more things that I wanted to show you. I'm going to discard this so there's no confusion. Be mindful, everything that Atlassian brings up the settings, in the project settings, be mindful of features option. There's all kinds of different stuff that they add that you can have enabled or disabled. Code, releases, goals, that's old Atlas functionality. Now it's home.atlassian.com that it'll bring all that together. That lives here. You have summary, very cool. Didn't have this before. I love the new feature, especially when I'm talking to a team. And so this is where it's enabled, where you can go and get that information. It gives you a status overview of all the issues, how many completed in the last 7 days, updated, created, what's due soon, any of the recent activity. You can see all of that, the type of work that's going on, the workload. If you're keeping track of different epics, you have the epic progress on each one of them. Rovo, very useful, very cool information available. Just enable it. I know we're coming up on time. I wanted to have a little bit of a question and answer time. The one thing that I want to go through, and I want to see if you pick this up. So I'm going to hit active sprint on this project and then hit the mobile block log. And I'm going to switch over to a PLAT, and that got loaded. I'm going to go to backlog, and that got loaded. I want to pause here and ask if you guys have thought or picked up on that little Easter egg that I was talking about, especially my last manipulations.
Actually, there is a guest in the chat. So Peter was asking if it was Avatar being an egg.
No, this is a recent ad by Atlassian team. Good guess, Peter. Good guess. Let me do this one more time. So I'm going to switch this over to a mobile project. My board loaded very quickly. I'm going to switch over to backlog. Quick, right? I'm going to switch over back to the PLAT project. This thing loaded instantly. I'm going to go to backlog. See a little pop-up?
Oh, yes.
5,000 issues loaded. Believe me, it's not my internet connection.
That's the impressive improvement they made.
This is a functionality that was recently added. It is hosting Jira data on a local machine. When that gets enabled, Jira will create a sandbox environment within your browser, download the data that lives in your Jira, keep it updated, improve load times extremely dramatically. It is very quick. I have that enabled, and that's why my backlog gets loaded instantly with 5,000 issues. I can switch back and forth, and this thing loads easy. No questions asked. Very, very cool. And so it's around backlog, it's around the boards, and then I believe it's JQL as well, that when you execute, it'll bring back the results faster. So much, much faster, a lot more enjoyable experience. That is my demo. Hopefully it was useful. Hopefully you learned something new, especially that last bit will make you fall in love with Jira all over again.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions they want to ask?
Hey, Russ, is that feature that you just showed with the local caching, is that available to general release right now?
I think it's general release. This is a very common practice in the cloud apps. Companies do that to improve performance. Basically, it's a DB that gets enabled within the browser cache, browser sandbox. It gets loaded up, and this thing just flies. It is private, right, to that browser. No other application can access it. No other website can access it that you're browsing. It's got a designated Jira sandbox within the browser. And so very secure and speedy experience.
Do you know, off chance, does it maintain that local caching of data in between sessions? I would close my browser, go home for the day, come in the next day, open my browser, open up my Jira again, and then while back in, it would still maintain that cache, and then it would just be a Delta update instead of bringing the whole thing down again?
Correct. I literally enabled this before the demo. It just downloaded very quickly. But one caveat, you got to remember that if you enable it, it's enabled for everybody within the company. So if you have 5,000 people, all 5,000 are going to have that feature enabled. It's not case by case. It's for everybody.
Then I guess the question that came in chat related to that is, do org admins need to be the ones to enable that cache?
Correct. Absolutely. You need to be an org admin in order to enable it.
All right.
If I remember correctly, let me see. I think you go products. There it is.
That looks like that's in the Jira administration. So just being a Jira admin.
Admin. Yeah, site admin. And this is, let's see. They want to make it helpful, but not super helpful. I was going to say if there's a link, I can share that. But
Yeah, I was looking. Coming up short.
yeah, that's where it's enabled. Literally click of the control and everybody will have it.
All right.
I had one last question, Russ. How can you possibly have 5,000 issues in your backlog?
On the demo site, the magic of automation.
That's a hell of a backlog, dude. You need to groom that and clean it up.
You know how I control it? I
don't think your team's going to get through that anytime soon.
No way. I agree there.
I've seen bigger backlogs in my day.
It's just that the bottom 4,000, they never get implemented.
Yeah. It's just that the bottom 4,800 that are a problem. Everything else is good.
That's right. Exactly.
That's when you look through your backlog and you see things that are like 12 years old.
That's why we do backlog grooming.
Yeah, I don't know. We can ask the group, what's the optimal amount of issues in the backlog? I'm sure there's some PMs out there.
I don't know if it's optimal. Generally, what I like to see with my team is I don't want to see anything in my backlog older than 30 days. If it gets older than 30 days, I start having an issue.
Part of the problem is that you have teams that do PI planning for a couple of quarters ahead of time, and that gets the issues assigned to.
The way we solve that is we actually have, because we've been through that exact same conversation, Russ. And for our, I wouldn't say admin teams is really what they are, admin/development teams. We try to maintain a very fast, clean backlog. And then what we do is for our lead technical analysts as well as our PMs, they have a separate project where they can build all this out. They can build out their structures and they can arrange their longer term projects however they want to. And then they just feed them into our projects when it gets closer, when the work is actually ready to be done. The best of both worlds is that keeps our stuff clean, but it also allows them to have their bigger picture view.
I would go with a bit of what Wendy does, where it's what can be accomplished in the next 6 months, depending on, again, what the product or project is and how your environment's organized too. In some of the use cases I have, 6 months is pretty reasonable. Anything older than 6 months, then you start having that ticket anxiety.
How often do you guys actually go through your entire backlog, take a look at it? If you're looking at 6 months worth of work, do you look at it every 6 months or do you look at it more often?
Actually, for my teams, it's once a month or biweekly. What we do is we alternate between doing backlog grooming, then we look at our backlog grooming for the next upcoming sprint to prepare for sprint planning, but then we also at least once a month go through all of our tickets that are in the project. We start with the older ones. Wendy says that what she does is what can be accomplished within the next 6 months. What I do is I go through the last entire project backlog and go, okay, let's look at quickly. What are we getting done? Is this still a thing? Is this still a thing? Is this still a thing? And then do a high level. And then we dig deeper and go, okay, let's actually look at this. Is this actually going to be done in the next couple of months? No, we should consider closing it and making a new one when it comes back to the surface again. So we do a bit of both.
Yeah, we've seen companies do epics without stories and then plan on those. And then as they come up, then you start writing out stories that will fulfill those epics. So you plan on at the epic level instead of having a backlog of thousands of stories.
And it always depends too on your team and how they like to work as well. So that's one of the key things that we look at is how is the team operating? How do they operate best? And then we mix it in with how the management side wants to see reports and structures and quarterly planning and PIs and stuff like that. I would like to thank everybody for coming today. I would like to thank Russ for presenting and demoing some of the new features that Jira has with the AI side being introduced. I'd like to thank Kayla for organizing this event with me, and thank you all for coming. We really enjoyed having you here. And thank you, Russ, again for presenting and for having Herzum sponsor today. Greatly appreciate. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your days.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Thank you so much, Russ. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Here.